You literally hear me
So
talking
you
like 30
like-
people. Like, what?
I don't, hey, I don't,
Instagram Live.
No, it's not
Anyone who's
Instagram.
listening.
It's YouTube. It's not Instagram.
if you wanna ask a
beginning
question.
But they call me.
They come home.
They call me. They're like,
They
"You're
learn
so
so
cute." The
much
thing.
on
I'm
the
like,
school
fuck.
Also, you're,
I told you. I warned you. You said you gotta go live. You said go live.
Toby, don't say that word. Toby.
Vicky.
Toby.
Wow, throwing people under the bus. That's good.
Toby.
It's a good start.
Yeah, sorry about the grade.
Okay,
Just ignore it. Just ignore it.
just
Cat,
take
it's
care.
in a while.
I'll get more followers.
Wow.
She goes here. Guys, everyone's like going around what they do. I do this on Instagram. I get that on
Share a fun fact. Your personal photo.
Don't worry, I follow you all.
We met. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. The last thing I have is, oh no, shoot, because that's from Purim. So before that, some conversation.
It's okay. I know where to go.
Calories.
It's like 9 degrees in
She's
here.
like,
Okay. Oh, someone's at your door.
Rocky is saying, okay, just come in, walk right in.
Oh, no.
If there's no seats, you have to just sit on the couch.
There's
I
one
think-
here.
I know, but a lot more people are coming in, I think that they're all gonna sit, yeah, and they're not gonna start doing the couch. Like, you don't make it to the table, you just sit.
right.
We could do it later.
I told some people not.
You're gonna have to push up your 9
Should I start?
A lot of people have reached out, I'm like, just don't come this minute.
Sitting on top.
Your keys.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Well, I'm giving you a bit. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So we had a little Purim break where I strayed from the topic, but today we're going to go back into the essential nature of what Chassidus is, and we're going to talk not just about what it is and not just an intro, but we're actually going to learn actual Chassidus, and we're going to talk about, we're going to look at something that we all know very clearly and well, and is very basic to Judaism, and we're going to look at it through the lens. What? Why?
that kind
I
of
can't
cute.
take off my sweatshirt?
Okay.
What's wrong with that? She said. Okay. All right, great.
Okay.
What's wrong?
it.
Okay, all right.
Take a few weeks.
No, we're good, we're good.
What's the problem?
There they go.
Later, I'm going to take a
Rocky says as long as he doesn't egg me on to do the same, we're good. Well,
Okay.
I did it, so we're
Okay.
good.
How's it going?
I brought my lineage.
Oh, you
I couldn't come
did?
last week.
Oh, I
I
know.
brought it.
So what's the lineage? Let's hear.
No, after.
After,
figure it out?
she's
Okay,
telling
fine.
you how she's a direct
Okay, great.
descendant, but
All right, guys. All right. So basically, we know that the best way to figure out, usually when it comes to mitzvahs, the best way to figure out how valuable a mitzvah is to look at the reward of a mitzvah. So like it says, keep it ava'im, you get long life. Shiloh haken, same thing. So usually you can tell by like let's say an investment, how good of an investment is. You can tell if it was good or not based on the return, right? How the best way to look at something's value is to look at the reward of that, whatever that is that you're looking at. So when it comes to Chassidus, I want to talk about today what Chassidus really is in its essential nature, and also explain that Chassidus is sort of has this twofold dynamic, where Chassidus in general, people generally think of Chassidus as like its own style of Torah, right? Like you learn Chassidus as opposed to learning Gemara or learning Chumash or whatever. And Chassidus actually has two elements to it. One element is and we're going to liken this to oil, is that oil doesn't mix with anything, but oil also permeates everything. So if you mix oil with another liquid, one liquid rises to the top and the other stays separate, and you can always differentiate the two. But also oil has the power to seep into everything and can enhance everything. And so Chassidus has multiple aspects to it, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Another thing just to establish is that this is just a general concept of Torah, is that since Torah is the blueprint of the world, and it says that Hashem looked in the Torah and created the world, therefore there can't be anything good in this world that exists that doesn't stem from Torah. Okay? Now, even the evil in this world has to stem from Torah somewhere, because literally, if you're going to build a house and you were a contractor and you're looking at the plans and you have to stick with the plans, that means that anything you build in the house is a result of the plans, right? Now, obviously, once you build the frame and the architect does his thing and the general contractor builds the overall, sure, there's finishes, there's plumbing, there's all this other stuff that comes as a result of it, but it has to be based or rooted on the initial plans. And therefore, anything that happens in this world or anything that exists in this world exists as a result of it being in the Torah. So if there's anything good that you have ever learned, whether it's business or psychology or education or anything that you could say, or any moral code or any system throughout history that created a set of rules, the good in those has to stem from Torah.
I was literally.
Oh, yeah.
I was literally texting you right now, like,
Okay, just turn it off.
I was like, oh.
I know.
Honestly, I didn't realize it was on. It was on since this morning.
Do I what?
You know where you are.
Do I know where I was?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
well-
saying with oil mix with everything, it permeates, it doesn't mix, but that's what permeates.
Everything good stuff from you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Blueprints of the world.
Everything good stems from the Torah. And
Anything
so,
that we learned.
right. But all of those good, positive things that you can find in any system, those themselves don't define the Torah. Those are just things that are found in the Torah. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I could look at any code of law that was written in any civilization that has nothing to do with Jewish civilizations. You could look at ancient Greece and find things that were, different laws at the time, laws that governments create. All those things you could look at and say, oh, that resembles a law in the Torah, like you can't steal. Well, the Torah says you can't steal, right? Anything that's good, though, stems from the Torah, but that doesn't define the Torah. So we're going to differentiate here, and this is why I want to, I'm bringing this example, because when it comes to understanding what Chassidus is, you can say that Chassidus touches on lots of different things, right? But that doesn't necessarily define the essence of what it is. So you could say, oh, Neve does X, Y, and Z. That doesn't mean that that's what Neve is in his core, but those are just things that reflect things about me, right? So when it comes to Chassidus has this like twofold manifestation in that you're going to see it touch on lots of different things in your regular life that you don't even realize are part of Chassidus or highlighted by Chassidus, but also Chassidus has its essential nature. So we're going to focus on differentiating between the values of Chassidus, the ways of Chassidus, but also the essence of what it is. So meaning you could dumb down an oil to actual pure oil, and then you can say, hey, oil also helps you do X, Y, and Z, and there's benefits of using oil in lots of different things. So we're just going to really be talking about the essential nature and the true essence of Chassidus, and then we're going to talk about how it expresses itself in lots of different ways. And I'm going to give you actual examples of that. So this isn't just going to be some hypothetical, okay? It's going to be text bound, and we're going to look at Modeh, the most basic thing in Torah, pretty much, and in our lives as serving Hashem, because there's nothing more, essential or basic about a Jew than the Modeh. Because any Jew can say, it doesn't matter your level, you don't have to be pure, you don't have to say Hashem's name, and we're going to talk about the different ways to look at that, and that'll kind of give you guys an idea of what Chassidus really is and how it has its own nature and also permeates everything else in the Torah and everything else in the world.
Well, even like what you said before, how everything good stems from the Torah. Like if you go to any sales coach or anything, everyone's big thing is like they start the day with gratitude, and that's like all the things that all these sales coaches are teaching. Gratitude, meditation, like Hispodidus, all this stuff, it all stems.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So you could take that in sales and say, oh, look, this clearly comes from Torah, right? But if you said, hey, does that one aspect define the Torah itself? Obviously not. But yeah, the Torah is, it's Chaim, right? So there's branches everywhere, and it's branching into all different places. And therefore, yeah, it's going to reach out into all good aspects of the world. Now, technically, because the Torah is the blueprint for the world, it actually gives life to everything that exists in the world, even the stuff that seems negative. So you can't just say, oh, only the good stuff stems from Torah. It comes about in a roundabout way, and we'll talk about that, because if I give life to everything, then even bad things that seemingly are bad have to be sustained by me, and the Torah is what gives life to the world. So, but in a little bit more of a roundabout kind of way, and we'll talk about that, okay? All right, so the best way, like I said, to define and understand the essential nature of something is to look at its reward. Okay? So I'm just going to go right into the text and translate. And if anyone has questions at any point, please stop me. Okay. To understand the definition of this essential nature of what Chassidus is, we have to understand that the reward, according to the Baal Shem Tov, the reward of Chassidus is Mashiach. That's the reward of Chassidus. And if you look at the last couple hundred years, Mashiach has been discussed more than any other time in Jewish history, and that is a result of the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov comes around late 1700s, and the Baal Shem Tov tells his students a story that on Rosh Hashanah, he goes up and he's meditating, and he goes up to the Heichal of Mashiach. He goes up to the place in Shamayim where Mashiach sits and waits to be revealed. And he goes to him and he says, Mashiach, we're all waiting for you. When are you coming? And Mashiach says, when the well springs of your teachings are spread throughout the world, that is when I will come. And the Baal Shem Tov goes and tells all these Chassidim, guess what, guys? I'm onto something here, because Mashiach just told me that, he's going to come when these teachings are spread. And so the essential reward of the Baal Shem Tov's work and what he brought into this world is Mashiach. Okay? Now, Mashiach is not some new concept. Rambam's 13 Principles of Faith talk all about Mashiach, is in the Mishnah Torah and Hilchos Malachim, in the Yad HaChazaka and the Rambam Mishnah Torah. So Mashiach is a foundational element and aspect of Judaism. This isn't something that Chabad started like 20 years ago, okay? So just because people choose to publicize it and make campaigns towards bringing Mashiach does not mean that Mashiach is some new Jewish concept that was brought about with the Thank You Hashem movement, okay? So it's a very real, essential, fundamental part of Judaism, okay? So this is not some polarizing concept that the reward of Chassidus is Mashiach, because lots of Torah explains that the essential point of the whole creation of the world is to bring Mashiach. That's why Hashem wanted it, because it says that he wanted a dwelling place in the lower realms with us. So we said he created this big dark area and told us to find him and make it nice and pleasant so that he can come and dwell with us. Why he enjoys that, that's beyond me or any human being to understand. That's just what Hashem enjoys, and that's why he created the system. Okay? So we're going to look at Mashiach to try to understand the nature of Chassidus, because the reward of Chassidus is Mashiach, and if we understand the nature of the reward, we can understand the nature of Chassidus itself. Okay? From the essence from the reward of a mitzvah, we'll understand its essence. Because, like the Baal Shem Tov said, that when Mashiach told him that when his teachings are spread, then Mashiach will come, so let's understand that. What's going to happen in the time of Mashiach? All these things are going to become certain things, new ideas, new events are going to be introduced into the world, okay? Geulat Israel v'Ashchina me'Galut. So the redemption of the Jewish people from exile, and it says that when the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, when the Jewish people were exiled, the Shechina left the Kodesh HaKodashim with the Jewish people. Okay, so Hashem gives us this Shechina that dwells in this world at the time of Adam HaRishon, and then they eat from the fruit, and then it goes away. And then Avram Avinu sets out on a mission to bring the Shekhinah back to the world. And Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef, they keep going until Moshe Rabbeinu comes down. The Moshe Rabbeinu takes us to the Torah, and he gives us the Torah, and the Shekhinah's back in this world. Woohoo, right? Didn't really last that long. Chet HaEgel happened a little bit after that. And all of a sudden, there's no more Shekhinah. So it's like Hashem's like, guys, I've literally just been trying to get you to keep the Shekhinah here for a little bit. And there is no Shekhinah. So, first base of Mikdash, Shekhinah comes back. It says that when the Shekhinah left after the destruction of the first base of Mikdash, it never came back in the same way, even at the time of the second base of Mikdash. So in the time of Mashiach, not only do the Jewish people return, but with the Jewish people returns the Shekhinah. Furthermore, on top of that, the Jewish people will be super wise among all the nations, and they will know all the hidden secrets of the world. And we will have a knowledge, an extensive knowledge and understanding of our Creator. It'll be like the same way you see these flowers on the table, you will be able to see godliness in this world. So when you do a mitzvah, and it says char mitzvah mitzvah, right? Because char mitzvah mitzvah is that you will see the mitzvah itself. You will see the divine energy that happens when you make a bracha on something, and then you eat it. You will see the spiritual energy behind you elevating that food by eating it, or by whatever mitzvah you do, or by wrapping tefillin or korbanos or whatever. The same way you could see the big fiery lion swallow up the korban in the Beis Hamikdash, you could see the extent of your mitzvah. So that's why the reward of your mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, because the divine energy that's in the mitzvah that you can't see right now, at the time of Mashiach, will be able to see it. And that's why there'll be no test and everyone will just want to do mitzvahs, because you'll be able to see the code behind the matrix, right? You can see everything that's going on.
What are you reading? What are you reading from?
What?
What are you reading from?
Oh, it's a Spider-Man comic book I got. This is called Inyana Shel Torah Chassidut. It's a mimer of the Lubavitcher Rebbe given in the year 1950, given 1965, explaining Chassidus. It was on the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, and he gave this whole discourse about the essence of Chassidus.
Well done.
Okay, we're getting there.
We're going to circle back.
Just have patience. We're getting there. Why? Because Mal'a Aretz De'ah, it says, that the world will know Hashem because we'll be able to see Him because He'll be dwelling here. Furthermore, there will be a change in what happened in Bereshis, in the world. When creation happened, there will be a difference between what it looked like up until now and what it looks like then. And the Zohar says that the people who are wise, the people who have studied Chassidus, will be able to recognize what they're looking at. And the people who don't will have to learn from the people who understand Chassidus, because it'll be like we have the 4D goggles and now we can see what's going on, and everyone else doesn't have those glasses yet, so they have to have this knowledge to be able to understand what they're looking at, okay?
That's just so crazy to say that, because I was just listening to a podcast today, whatever it was about, doesn't matter, but she was talking about how... But she was talking about how there's certain people who can see the geometry of the world, of nature. They can look at nature and see the actual makeup behind it, the geometry. And she was saying how recently, in the past few years, there's been this new geometry that they've never seen before, and the world is changing. Something's happening, and all these people are discovering it. People who know how to read this, that there's a new geometry, which was
That's interesting.
Cool.
Well, if you look,
it feels like that's what you're saying. There's some sort of rebirth happening.
if you look at the last 250 years since the Baal Shem Tov came around, and you look at how the world has advanced or progressed, think about just technology or modern medicine or construction or anything you want to look at, how for 5,500 years, we all lived the same stupid caveman-y life, and all of a sudden there's advances, right? It's not a coincidence that when Chassidus came to the world started to elevate and benefit, right? Like penicillin was always here. We just didn't know how to find it, right? We didn't know how to turn those plants into something, right? So all these things that are evolutions that happen in the physical are happening as a result of their spiritual counterparts. Because
So you're saying Chassidus entered and spread, and therefore it's affecting everything.
the way that it works here in this world, and we talked about this, I think you were here the first time, so there's a chain of descent, right? Everything that happens in this physical world, the lowliest of the worlds, is happening as an extension of what started up here in the spiritual, right? So you're just seeing the end result at the, like a big domino effect, right? So Hashem flicks a domino and down there the candy falls, right? So when Chassidus came, there was a change in the spiritual that allowed it to come down here, right? There were all these decrees against the Baal Shem Tov for what he was doing, because up in Shemaim, they're like, what are you doing? You're revealing the best secrets. Why are you giving away the king's crown jewel to the common folks? And he's like, well, this is what they need, because they're in a state of shock. They're all like, vegetables, and they can't do anything. And all of a sudden, we need to give them something to wake them up. So we have to give them the greatest gems. And so,
What year did you say?
the Baal Shem Tov
Yeah.
in the 1700s, late 1700s.
Okay. Do you not think? I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to like.
Yeah,
whatever.
go.
Yeah, do it.
Let's
Isn't
fight.
that-
Yeah.
Isn't I thought that before the Baal Shem Tov, Mashiach wasn't really. It almost was like any mentions, not erased, but were like shunned, and a lot of things were put away because of what happened with.
So the Shabtai Tzvi
Tzvi,
thing, yeah, but like,
And
there,
that was 60.
but they thought that Bar Kochva was going to be Mashiach too, and no one got
Right.
upset. Like he could have been Mashiach, right? If Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael, he would have been Mashiach, right? Like there wasn't some like, oh, we don't talk about Mashiach, but it was just like, hey, the Shabtai Tzvi thing, yeah, we should probably stay away from like people saying that they're Mashiach, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm more just saying you mentioned that it was only since then that there was like a Mashiach, like I don't know what the word is, like
Mashiach energy, like Modi.
yeah Mashiach energy, or like phenomenon that like we got to bring Mashiach, but like I think that there was before. Am I wrong? And
People
that
were-
people kind of like stepped back a little bit because they were
If you look at the Chafetz Chaim, he had a bag that he always had ready with his clothes for when Mashiach came.
right.
Right? That wasn't yesterday, and that also
No,
wasn't 3,000 years ago,
You're
right?
supposed to. I thought you're supposed to. Rambam says that you're supposed to always be
Waiting.
believing that Mashiach could come in any moment, but you're not supposed to. It shouldn't be like the goal of your life to bring Mashiach. Like you should be, your bringing Mashiach should be the best yid and person that you can be.
That's how you
About-
bring him.
Right. So
But there's also a mitzvah of Som Tasim Alecha Melech, which is that you should appoint a Jewish king.
right.
And when there is no Jewish king, you have to identify who could be that Jewish king. So he's not Mashiach until we all see that Mashiach's here, right?
Right.
Like the
No,
Mashiach.
no, I'm not saying anything about like.
There can't be a-
shop type speak. I'm saying
Right.
I'm just trying to understand what you were saying. I'm like a little stuck on it before, and I'm not saying like anything. I'm just trying to understand. You're saying that since the Baal Shem Tov said what he said, his point was to bring about this like energy of let's bring Mashiach, right?
The energy that he brought down wasn't like, hey, we need to bring Mashiach, so I'm going to bring Chassidus into this world.
It was to excite us, right?
He was like, hey, the Jewish people are spiritually like in a coma,
Right.
and we need to awaken them. And then when, as a result of what he was doing, he found out from Mashiach himself that, hey, by the way, we're supposed to wait for you. When are you coming?
Right.
And oh, you just keep doing what you're doing and I'll show up. Not like, hey, let's bring Mashiach, it's time, and maybe I'll do Chassidus and see if that does anything. Like he was like, hey, the Jews are sleeping, how do I wake them up?
Yeah.
And then as a result of that,
Okay.
yeah,
Sorry, didn't tell.
you don't need to be sorry. I'm the last person you need a disclaimer with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about, we always learn, we not double you're like, be nice to each other, that's gonna bring Mashiach. Like that's why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed.
Right?
Is that also true?
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
All good stuff is right away.
We're not saying anything about what brings or doesn't bring Mashiach. We're literally looking at the fact is that the reward of Chassidus is Mashiach, and so let's understand what Chassidus is. No, but we're just gonna right. Let's understand the nature of what Mashiach is, and maybe that'll help us understand the nature of what Chassidus is. Right? So.
But I have a question. You were saying that people could probably be very opposed to the idea, saying if you don't have Chassidus, then we're going to enlighten you. The people that do have Chassidus will enlighten those that don't.
Right.
That's super,
Elitist.
yeah, and why for sure they were misnagdim. They were opposing that fact.
So the misnagdim thing, like OG misnagdim,
Yeah.
was not as much like a hey, why do you guys think you're better than us? It was like a hey, why do you think that you can give the secrets of the Torah to the Jews who aren't learned, who aren't even in yeshiva with us, right? That there was a lot more of that.
So it wasn't like opposing actual Hasidic thought.
No, because a lot of those people, the Gra learned Kabbalah, right? So it wasn't like it was some taboo thing. It was like, why are you giving the crown jewel to the peasants, right? It was a lot of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually about the foundation, because that would be super elitist and like people could see that.
Listen, the elitist thing is a totally different question, which I'll be happy to do a podcast about. But it has nothing to do. But it has nothing to do with. But yeah, you know. But it has nothing to do with this. That's just a separate thing. That hey, she's talking about Ben Adam L'Chavera, right? Like, if we're all one body, right, the Jewish people. And you saw that from October 7th more than ever, right? And I know that there's something that when Mashiach comes, I'm going to have the glasses to see, right? Like, imagine computers didn't exist and I had the guidebook to, like, how to use computers, right? I've never even seen a computer before, but I learned it, right? And if then someone puts a computer in front of my face, I'm like, oh, I get it. I know what to do with this thing now. Like, I kind of get it because I studied all the guides, right? 1 second. Right? I studied all the guides. Whereas if you're like, well, why study computers? We don't have any right now, right? Well, I want to know what happens when the computer shows up. I want to be able to see that, right? So it's not crazy of me to say, hey, you should like look into this like guide, because when the computers come, like, don't you want to see? Like, I just want what's best for you. Like, we're all one big Jewish family. Right. It's not elitist of me to say, hey, I just want you to like be able to see what I see, right? Like, if I'm holding,
but
you know,
why is it not like mainstream, like a lot of schools here, like saying, like, we don't teach classes.
That's like a much longer discussion, and I'm happy to have that with you. No, I'm happy to have that. Oh, yes, you. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying like these people that are sitting and learning in Kollel and Neir Yisrael and Schlongers, and they're learning Gemara all day long, and they're like nonstop greasing it down. Mashiach's gonna come, and I'm gonna have this light of Chassidus, and they're not, and they're gonna come and say, "Oh, Mickey," and I'm like, "Shh, I got you." That's what we're saying.
That's what she's worried about.
Is that what you just said?
Is that why you're doing this?
To answer the question, it's very important.
The answer is no.
The question.
Are you out?
Okay, so there's not. It's not like they're gonna get punished or
No, not
something.
punished, but like,
It's just
I'm
you're
gonna have
the lens. You're gonna have the lens.
I'm gonna have the lens that they're not gonna have.
Right.
You're gonna know more about that.
It's like this. Let's say you learn all about Karbanos. You learn all about Karbanos. You learn about the Beis Hamikdash, right? When the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi comes, you're gonna know what to do, right? If you know how to serve and how to make the clothes for the Kohanim and do all this stuff, like, you're gonna be well versed in that, right?
How do you know they don't know?
Who?
So how do we know the guys at
No, they're learning Chassidus. You know what? Next time I'll go tomorrow.
This is not a negative to any of those people.
No, not a negative.
I'm just saying, if you.
What's the, you're saying,
I think different
you're
yeshivas
saying,
learn
I
Chassidus,
want to
like,
say
different
now.
yeshivas
This
learn
is
it.
literally why
Right, because we do, but most don't.
Why?
Yeah, I'm I don't think you know right or wrong.
It's not like they're bad.
No one's bad. Everyone's
Right,
fantastic.
right. They're all
We
great.
need softer crunch next time.
By the way, girl, I hear you from
people are
I
talking
hear
about
you
like-
from here.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm so.
I have that thing where you hear people say you want to vomit.
My mouth.
It's called misophonia.
I know.
I have it. My best friend has it.
I have it. It's fine. Can we continue, please?
Yeah.
I'm still stuck.
Misophonia.
I have misophonia actually. If I hear people chewing, I want to like kill them. Slash kill them really. My brother has it very bad.
It's your fault you put it out.
Yeah. Yeah, he has it also genetic.
Okay,
It's
let's
your
keep
fault
going about
you put it out.
the positives of what happens in the time of Mashiach.
You put that food out.
What?
It's live.
No. Oh, these?
Absolutely not. Real Rob, go watch it tonight.
No. I'm gonna do like a little snippet of what Mickey yelled in the beginning, and then I'm just gonna
You can put it on
It
like.
wasn't me.
What did I
It
miss?
was Toby.
It was
stop the F-bomb.
literally not me.
It was literally you.
Yeah.
I'm
Wasn't
gonna,
it me?
I'm gonna tag you.
Okay. All right.
Put it on like a loop, like, and it just keeps repeating.
You're ruining my light.
Okay, so B'chinat Elokut shelamala ma'ateva. Right now, there's two levels of godliness that are in this world. There's nature, which we call Elokim, and there's Ad Hashem, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? So Hashem has these two modalities of His light or His energy existing in this world, because right now Hashem has to put things on autopilot or seeming autopilot, so that things happen in a way where we don't feel His presence, and that's called nature. So the sun rises and the sun sets, and we think that that stuff happens on its own. That is all managed by Hashem's name Elokim. Right now, you don't get to see the fact that there is His infinite light, a way that transcends all of nature, that actually powers that. And what I mean by that is that we all see lights in this room, right? And we know that there's light in this room. And the lights can be on a timer, you can switch them on and off, and you feel like there's electricity in here. But you can't see the power grid. You don't see that there's lines running through underground or in the wires or whatever else that actually brings the electricity into here. So Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, you're saying Hashem, the infinite Hashem, is Elokeinu. He's our nature. What the things that seem to happen on their own don't actually happen on their own. They're just running on autopilot, because that tricks us into thinking that they can happen without Hashem. But His actual infinite light that He can't condense right now because we can't receive it, that infinite light will be seen. That will be revealed. So right now we have to believe that the reward of our mitzvah, or that the outcome of us doing a mitzvah, affects some spiritual, right? We're just told to believe that there's some warehouse upstairs that's collecting all of our merits whenever we do a mitzvah, right? We don't get to see that. In the time of Mashiach, this name of Hashem, of Yud Kei Vav Kei, will actually be revealed. So you'll see the godliness behind actual nature. You'll see that there really is no autopilot. It's just that Hashem put the electric grid and hid it underneath the house or in the wires, and that's why there's lights everywhere, okay? You'll be able to see the connection point. And therefore, that's why it says everyone will call Korim et Hashem kichtavo. Everyone will say Hashem's name like they used to be able to say in the Beis Hamikdash. It won't be hidden from you anymore. Actual godliness will be revealed in a way that right now, since Adam Arishon, and since Matan Torah, and since Kodesh HaKodashim, it was removed from this world, you'll be able to see it. And every Jew will be able to know that, even stronger Jews. Ki b'chol olam kulo yeh gilui b'chinat Shem Hashem. This name of Hashem will be revealed everywhere. And the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is Haya Hoveh V'Hiyeh. Yud Kei Vav Kei represents this name of past, current, and future, because Hashem doesn't have a timeline. He exists. Hashem in His essence doesn't exist in a time frame. There is no before, now, or later, because before the creation of the world, there was no time. Time is a function of this world. So that level of Hashem will be readily apparent to every single Jew in this world. Because Hashem is above time and space. The same way that spatial constraints didn't exist in the Beis Hamikdash, where everyone stood like this, but when they had to lie down, they had all plenty of room. The same way that happened in the Beis Hamikdash, that will be manifest in the world, like it was in the Beis Hamikdash, right? that will be able to see godliness in a way that transcends time and space. Okay. All of these things that we're saying are going to happen in the time of Mashiach. They don't just happen in this world, but in all the worlds. So we talked about these 4 spiritual worlds: Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. All these worlds are going to experience the same godliness that we have down here. So literally, everyone thinks that Gan Eden is this amazing place, and that we all strive to do stuff down here in order to go over there. But the reason Gan Eden is so great is because all of the mitzvahs build the castles up there, right? So everything that happens up there in these spiritual worlds is a reflection of all the work that we do down here. So even though we're in the lowest of lows, everyone always thinks that this is the worst place to be, right? But everything that we do here actually affects change up there. That's why when someone passes away, God forbid, you donate a building in their name, or you do a kiddush for them, or whatever you do, because you're the only one that can actually affect their status.
So their life leading up to that didn't affect what Gan Eden's going to be like for them?
Sure it did.
No, it did, but once they're dead, only you could hire for them.
I'm saying
Once they're there, okay.
once they're there and they can do nothing for themselves, why you why you
We
can't
have
wear
the power
tzitzis in a
to-
cemetery, right? Because you're teasing them. They can't elevate themselves. The result of your actions down here is what causes their benefit, right? It's like you're landscaping it nicer for them, right? Or you're elevating them. That's why you have made their neshama have an aliyah, because you are creating that aliyah for them. So even though these are like lofty, nice spiritual worlds that we all have learned to dream about, yes, I said lofty. Find me a better word, I'll use that instead.
I like the
Okay, fine. Those worlds are affected, and the same way when we bring Mashiach here, and this lowly world, Hashem comes to dwell with us here, that will have a direct effect on the upper realms as well. So even though we're used to thinking of them like, hey, we're on the bottom and they're higher, those things actually get affected by us. We have direct access to change what those things are happening in this world. Just like we decide down here when Rosh Chodesh is, right? The upper worlds only celebrate Rosh Chodesh when we determine it's Rosh Chodesh.
What? Did I miss that from last time?
No, I just said that first time.
Oh,
Yeah. So that is what happens. And same thing on Chag. That's why we get to decide, right? That's why we get to decide what goes on, because we establish things here below.
What? Are you gonna explain that? We decide when Rosh Chodesh is?
Uh-huh.
The moon.
I mean, we don't control the moon.
But we announce when it is, and then Shemaim responds as a result of that.
Let's say we all miss Rosh Chodesh. It wasn't Rosh Chodesh.
Have you ever heard of the Lo B'Shamayim Hi Gemara, where the Bas Kol rang out? There was two tzaddikim talking in the Gemara, and they're arguing about a psak, what it should be, this way or that way, right? And one of them, they're arguing back and forth, and they say, we don't know who's right. All of a sudden, a Bas Kol, a voice from Shemaim, comes out and says, the answer is like this rabbi. And they're like, oh, you see, Shemaim said he's right. We go by him. And then they're all like, nope, lo b'Shemaim hi. This is not something for Shemaim to decide. We decide down here, and Hashem goes with what we do. I know this is like controversial, but if you think of it, right, but this happened in the Gemara. This isn't like some Mashiach energy stuff. So the way that the Torah is structured is that it's Eitz Chaim Hi. It's a living, breathing organism, right? So because of that, because the tree is constantly growing fruits, right? How could it be that we have Torah Shabbat Peh? How could it be that you could write a new book on Torah and it be accepted as Torah if it wasn't given by Moshe Rabbeinu, right? The way Hashem, because he's not bound by time and space, and I know this is hard to fathom because as humans, that's all we know. The way Hashem created the Torah is that it's infinite. And so just because there was only 5 books at one point, that doesn't mean that the oral Torah isn't as valid as the rest, right? And so as these things keep changing and progressing, right? Hashem, the only way I can really explain this, and it's hard to fathom, but Imagine that like you put a little a mouse in like a maze, right? And you wanted to get somewhere to the finish line because that's where the cheese was, right? It's going to bump into all these walls, right? And it could choose which way it's going to go to get there, right? But if you ultimately say, hey, however you get there, I'm good with that, right? I just want you to go get the cheese. So Hashem has this dual dynamic that it's like, hey, what my wisdom is the halacha. But because I'm Hashem and I'm not bound by the same thing that humans are, I can make it that whatever you choose happens to be exactly what I wanted you to choose.
Okay.
Okay? That's just something that a creation cannot understand of its creator.
Yeah.
And that's all in Rambam. That he's the known, he's the knowledge, he's the wisdom, he's the knower also. And that's not something for humans to understand. But if you can accept that the sea split and we walked through it and the mountain was floating over our heads and all this other cool stuff, then you can also accept that Lo machshavatay machshavatechem, my thoughts are not yours, and he thinks in a different way than we do. And there's a way that he could have us choose and come up with the solution on our own, and that also be aligned with what his wisdom is. Okay? It's not something that I can like comprehend because I'm like a human, I think. And yeah, okay. How are we doing with time? Crunching chicken, or are we gonna?
I haven't crunched.
Okay.
in like,
Don't crunch, no one's judging. You have like 3 minutes.
Okay, great.
I still have Modani sitting here.
Yeah, it's coming.
Today?
Wow. Okay.
No. I was like,
Wow. Okay, great. All right. I guess I'm gonna speed up. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, so all these things, these upper and lower worlds are going to change as a result of what happens down here. Okay, but even with all of these nice things that we're saying about the changes and the effects and all these things of Mashiach, that's just equivalent to me saying, hey, a good thing in sales is to start with gratitude, right? That doesn't give you the essence of sales. That just gives you one thing. So all of these nice things are just ramifications of the essential point of Mashiach. So now we have to understand what the essential point of Mashiach even is. And I'm just going to fly through this. I have 2 minutes. Okay. What's the essential point of Mashiach? This is not going to be 2 minutes. Yechida.
4 minutes.
Okay, Yechida. Every single soul, okay, has 5 parts of it. Okay, so let's just think from shallow to the most deep. Okay, you have your nefesh, your ruach, your neshama. I can send you guys all translations of what this are. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, the level of like an animal in your soul, and the yechida. Yechida is like a prime number. It can't be multiplied by anything other than itself because it has its own separate existence that can't be tainted by anything. It can't be changed, okay? So these other 4 levels, they all have a shape, like the geometry, okay? They all have a shape. And so when you look at the 4 levels of learning Torah, for example, you have your pshat, easy. Whatever's on the surface, 5-year-old Rashi, we understand it, right? You have your lemez, you have your hinted, homiletic explanation, you have your drush and your sod, right? So the innermost Kabbalah. So there's 4 levels of extrapolating or understanding Torah. Each one of those has a form or a shape. Now shapes are limiting, right? Because I can only fit a round peg into a round hole, right? Or a square and round, right? Like each thing has its own limitation. If I define something with a name or with a shape, then it could be the biggest shape in the world, but it's still defined to what it is, okay? If I have $10 gazillion and you have $1 billion, I think gazillion is more than billions, if it's even a real number, because it's not. But there's still a comparison, right? Like I say, this is large and this is small. If someone has infinite dollars, it doesn't matter how many trillions of dollars you have. You could even take another $1 trillion from that infinite dollars. It doesn't change the fact that it still has infinite dollars, okay? So this concept of infinity, this is why Jewish people are so special and never lost, because at the core of a Jew has the yechida of his nefesh, okay? Of his soul, of his neshama. So nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. This fifth aspect of the soul is the part that is eternal, because it's one with Hashem at all times. It's the part that can't be tainted by your averas. It's the one that can't ever be far from the king, because it's the king's son, and it always lives in the castle and the palace with the king. So the yechida of the neshama, that is the level of Mashiach. Okay. David HaMelech was the level of nefesh. Eliyahu Navi was the level of ruach. Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of neshama. Adam Rishon was the level of chaya. And Mashiach possesses the level of yechida, this infinite, untouchable part of the infinite Hashem. And if you look at everything in fives, you see that the four worlds we talked about, even the loftiest world, the world of Atzilus, is still a world that is confined by whatever its shape is. Even a name, right? You call something what it is, it can't be something other than what you call it. So by saying Hashem is great, you're actually limiting him, because great has a definition. Anything you define is limiting by nature. If something is beyond definition, and it can be anything and everything, it can be that oil where it has its own thing, that it can't be anything but it. It also has the power to permeate into everything else, because it doesn't have a form. It's the ultimate infinite chameleon. And so this level of yechida that's in every single Jew is the level that can't be extinguished by any amount of water, right? It's the fire that burns in every single Jew. It's the part of us that's tied to Hashem all the time, infinitely, okay? So if you say a lot of the struggle with Chassidus and Misnagdim originally was, hey, these are lost Jews. These are Jews that don't fit in. These are Jews that aren't keeping Torah and mitzvahs. What even makes them Jewish? The yechida is what makes them Jewish. The infinite connection to Hashem is what makes them Jewish, and therefore it doesn't matter if you can learn Torah, or you can daven, or you can't anything, so long as that pilot light is always burning. Okay, I can turn the stove on high or low or whatever you want, but the pilot can't be extinguished, because it's infinite. And when you're tied to the infinite, then it doesn't matter how much you take away from it or how much you give back to it. It doesn't need you either way, right? I take an infinite amount. I take $100 trillion away from a guy who has infinity dollars. It doesn't matter. He still has an infinite amount of money. That's the yechida of the soul. We're going to talk more about how this relates to Chassidus later, but that's a big intro to that I have to give you based on these 3 lines so that you understand the rest.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get
Next
to more
time,
done.
well done.
Yeah.
Wait, one error.
Texting the tree to Jill.
Oh, yeah, I want to see. Yeah, ask